Vampires, immortal and seductive creatures that haunt the shadows of human imagination. They are prominent figures in folklore and mythology. The origin of vampires are entwined with the diverse tales of ancient civilizations, each contributing its unique element to vampiric lore. Here we will journey through the centuries to discover the origins of vampires and trace their evolution through myth and legend. Ancient Mesopotamia. The earliest inklings of vampire-like entities can be found in ancient Mesopotamia. The Lilitu, female demons associated with storms and disease, share some characteristics with later vampire legends. The Lilitu, also known as Lilith, find their roots in Mesopotamian myth, particularly in Sumerian and Akkadian traditions. These female spirits were often depicted as nocturnal entities, dwelling in desolate places, embodying both beauty and danger. The etymology of the name Lilith suggests connection to the stormy night. The Lilitu were often associated with storms, wind, and darkness. Their appearance was that of striking and seductive women, luring unsuspecting mortals into the shadows. The Lilitu were believed to be spirits capable of both bringing fertility and, conversely, causing harm, especially to newborns and pregnant women. They were believed to be child abductors, stealing infants away from their mothers as they slept. This aspect of the Lilitu myth reflects the anxieties surrounding childbirth and the vulnerability of mothers and children. The Lilitu made appearances in Sumerian literature, including incantations and hymns. In these texts, they were often invoked to protect against malevolent forces. However, the dual nature of the Lilitu, embodying both positive and negative aspects, adds complexity to their role in the cosmic order. The Lilitu were not isolated entities, but interacted with other gods and goddesses in the Mesopotamian pantheon. In some myths, they were associated with Inanna, the goddess of love and war, and Nergal, the god of the underworld and plague. These connections added layers to the significance in the cosmic hierarchy. The mythology of the Lilitu reflects the ancient Mesopotamian worldview and social concerns. The fear of childbirth, the unpredictability of storms, and the allure of the night all played roles in shaping the tales around these spirits. Additionally, the duality of the Lilitu may mirror the complexities of feminine power and the dual nature of cosmic forces. While the Lilitu originated in Mesopotamian myth, echoes of their legacy persisted through time. The concept of Lilith as a seductive and dangerous female figure transcended Mesopotamian boundaries and found a place in later mythologies, including Jewish folklore and Christian demonology. Ancient Greece and Rome. In ancient Greece, the Lamia were malevolent spirits or monsters associated with child abduction. Similarly, the Striges in Roman mythology were believed to be bird-like creatures with vampiric thirst for blood. These early representations hinted at the concept of supernatural beings with a taste for life essence. Ancient Greece, with its vast web of myths and legends, birthed a myriad of fantastical creatures that both intrigued and terrified the collective imagination. Among these beings, the Lamia stood as a figure shrouded in darkness and mystery. The Lamia finds its roots in Greek mythology, and its name is often associated with a fearsome and monstrous female figure. The etymology of Lamia is uncertain, but it is believed to be linked to the Greek word lamios, meaning throat or gullet, possibly alluding to the creature's voracious nature. The Lamia is predominantly featured in ancient Greek literature, particularly in the works of poets such as Aristophanes, Aristoteles, and Athenousis. These literary sources portray the Lamia as a malevolent and seductive female demon with a penchant for harming children and feasting on their flesh. One of the defining characteristics of the Lamia in Greek mythology is her association with the abduction and consumption of children. Legends depict her as a vengeful spirit, often cursed by the gods, driven to seek revenge by preying on the offspring of others. This dark aspect of the Lamia myth reflects the fears and anxieties surrounding infant mortality in ancient Greek society. In some versions of the myth, the Lamia is presented as a tragic figure. According to these narratives, she was once a beautiful queen or noblewoman who faced the wrath of the gods, leading to her transformation into a monstrous being. This portrayal adds a layer of complexity to the Lamia's character, evoking empathy alongside fear. The Lamia's terrifying presence extended beyond literature into art and culture. Ancient Greek pottery and sculptures often depicted her monstrous form, emphasizing her hybrid nature with features of both woman and beast. The visual representation of the Lamia served as a cautionary symbol, reinforcing societal norms and fears. The Lamia's role in Greek mythology goes beyond a mere supernatural threat. It can be interpreted symbolically, representing societal fears and taboos related to female power, desire, and the consequences of transgressing moral boundaries. The Lamia, with her dual nature as both seductress and child killer, embodies the complexities of female archetypes. While the Lamia originated in ancient Greece, echoes of its myth persisted through the ages. The concept of a seductive yet monstrous female creature found its way into later folklore and literary traditions, evoking and adapting to cultural shifts. In ancient Greece, they also believed that redheads could turn into blood-drinking creatures when they died. Slavic folklore. The roots of the modern vampire legend can be traced to Slavic folklore, where creatures like the Strigoi and Nosferatu were believed to rise from the dead to torment the living. These entities, often associated with plagues and death, were said to return to the earthly realm to feed on the blood of the living. Slavic folklore, steeped in mysticism and ancient beliefs, has many an interesting tale of mythical creatures that embody the fears and wonders of a culture deeply connected to the natural world. Among these creatures, the Strigoi and the Nosferatu were believed to rise from the dead. The Strigoi and the Nosferatu stand as haunting figures, symbolic of the delicate balance between life and death. The Strigoi, originating from Romanian and Slavic traditions, is a vampiric entity known for its malevolent nature. Unlike the traditional image of a vampire, the Strigoi is not confined to the grave, but is believed to be restless, malevolent spirit that can rise from the dead. It is often associated with causing illness, death, and misfortune to the living. The Strigoi is typically depicted as a revenant with the thirst for blood, akin to other vampire myths. However, what sets a Strigoi apart is its ability to transform into various animals, such as wolves or bats, adding a layer of shape-shifting malevolence to its character. It is believed that those who led sinful lives or died without proper rituals would return as Strigoi. In response to the fear of Strigoi, Slavic communities developed various protective rituals and practices. These included burying the dead with certain items, such as garlic or coins, to prevent them from returning. Additionally, rituals involved exorcism or decapitation of suspected Strigoi were employed to safeguard the living. The term Nosferatu is not exclusive to Slavic folklore, but it gained prominence in Eastern European vampire lore. Derived from the Greek Nosphoros, meaning plague carrier, Nosferatu is associated with vampiric entities that spread disease and darkness. The concept was popularized in Western culture through Bram Stoker's Dracula, while Nosferatu became more widely recognized through Stoker's work. The image of a vampire creature with nocturnal habits, a thirst for blood, and the ability to transform has deep roots in Slavic folklore. The mysterious allure and terror associated with Nosferatu continue to inspire various forms of artistic expression, from literature to cinema. Both the Strigoi and Nosferatu hold symbolic significance in Slavic folklore. They embody the fears surrounding death, the afterlife, and the consequences of leading a sinful life. These creatures also serve as cautionary tales, warning against neglecting proper burial rites and moral conduct. The allure of Strigoi and Nosferatu has transcended folklore, infiltrating contemporary literature and cinema. While the traditional folklore aspects remain, these creatures have evolved to suit the changing cultural landscape. Medieval Europe. The medieval period in Europe, often characterized by superstitions and fears, saw the emergence of captivating and chilling folk beliefs surrounding vampiric entities. The notion that the dead could rise from their graves to torment the living became a prevalent theme in medieval folklore, creating a climate of terror and paranoia. The roots of vampiric folk beliefs in medieval Europe can be traced to a complex amalgamation of cultural, religious, and societal factors. The medieval mindset was deeply influenced by fear of the unknown, superstitions inherited from ancient traditions, and the pervasive influence of Christian theology, which often incorporated elements of the supernatural. In medieval folklore, vampires were often depicted as revenants, animated corpses that returned from the grave to plague the living. These entities believed to possess a ravenous thirst for blood, with nocturnal habits that involved prowling in the shadows and preying on unsuspecting victims. The image of the vampire in this context differed from the aristocratic and charismatic figures seen in later literary works. Medieval communities grappled with a myriad of explanations, the phenomenon of vampirism. Folk beliefs often attributed vampiric tendencies to individuals who led sinful lives, died untimely deaths, or were victims of violence. Additionally, the failure of proper burial rites or the absence of religious sacraments could transform a deceased person into a malevolent revenant. The fear of vampires spurred the development of various protective measures within medieval communities. Rituals, amulets, and charms were employed to ward off these supernatural threats. Graves suspected of harbouring vampires were often subjected to exhumation and elaborate rituals, including staking the corpse or placing objects such as garlic and holy relics in the burial site. The pervasive fear of vampires had a profound impact on medieval society. Communities became gripped by paranoia, and the fear of the undead fueled collective anxiety. The rituals associated with preventing or dealing with vampires became integral to cultural practices, reflecting a blend of Christian and pre-Christian beliefs. While medieval vampire lore lacked the sophistication and literary finesse seen in later centuries, it laid the groundwork for the evolution of vampire mythology. As society progressed, these folk beliefs morphed into more elaborate and symbolic representations, eventually influencing the Gothic literature of the 18th and 19th centuries. The echoes of medieval vampiric folk beliefs persist in contemporary culture, with vampires continuing to be a staple in literature, film, and popular imagination. The Balkans and Dracula. The Balkans, particularly Serbia, served as the crucible for the vampire hysteria that gripped Eastern Europe in the 18th century. The very word vampire is believed to have its roots in the Serbian language, reflecting the deep-seated cultural fears that manifested in tales of the undead. The Balkans, a region steeped in folklore and traditions, gave birth to the vampire hysteria that spread like wildfire in the 18th century. Local legends and beliefs in the supernatural lay the foundation for stories of the undead, where corpses were said to rise from their graves to prey upon the living. In the Balkans, vampiric entities were often associated with untimely deaths, suicides, or improper burial rites, and the fear of these creatures became deeply ingrained in the cultural psyche. Vlad III, famously known as Vlad the Impaler, ruled Wallachia in the 15th century. His burial and sadistic method of punishing enemies, coupled with the widespread use of impalement, earned him a fearsome reputation. Vlad III's atrocities combined with the folklore surrounding his deeds, contributed to the vampire legends that permeated Eastern European consciousness. The association of Vlad III with vampire lore is not merely a product of his historical brutality, but also stems from the parallels drawn between his reign and the vampire myths. Legends of Vlad III feasting upon the impaled bodies of his enemies added a vampiric aura to his persona, reinforcing the connection between historical figures and supernatural beliefs. Bram Stoker's seminal novel, Dracula, published in 1897, served as a transformative force in shaping the modern vampire archetype. Stoker drew inspiration from Eastern European folklore, particularly the stories surrounding Vlad III, to craft his iconic character, Count Dracula. By merging Eastern European traditions with Western literary sensibilities, Stoker catapulted the vampire from local superstitions to global symbol of horror. The success of Dracula resonated globally. The Count Dracula became a symbol of the archetypal vampire. The novel's impact on literature, film, and popular culture cannot be overstated. Stoker's portrayal of the charismatic yet monstrous vampire set the stage for the romanticized and alluring vampires that would populate later works of fiction. The Balkan origins of vampire hysteria, coupled with the transformative influence of Vlad III and Bram Stoker's Dracula, continue to reverberate in contemporary culture. Vampires, once localized in Eastern European folklore, have become ambiguous figures in global literature and media, perpetuating the fascination with the undead. Global variations. Vampire-like beings exist in diverse cultures worldwide. In Chinese folklore, for instance, the Jiangji is a reanimated corpse with vampiric traits. Similarly, the Aswang in Filipino folklore is a shape-shifting monster associated with blood-sucking. Modern vampire fiction. The 19th and 20th centuries saw the transformation of vampires from folkloric figures to literary and cinematic icons. From Stoker's Dracula to Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles and contemporary series like Twilight, vampires have undergone various interpretations, ranging from monstrous to romanticized. Serpent bloodline connection. Often things are encoded in fiction. Symbolism is everywhere. When you know about the special rituals of the serpent bloodline and the temple grail priestesses and the elixir they produce, as discussed in my book and some of my other videos, and you add that to the fact that serpents have pale skin, startling blue eyes and red hair, meaning that not only do we tend to burn easily in the sun, we also struggle to see in bright light, because blue eyes are better at seeing in the dark. Indeed, it is because our ancient ancestors evolved from aquatic apes, who would often hunt underwater, and the fact that they were mostly nocturnal, you can begin to see how things would start to add up. Burn in the sunlight, struggle to see in bright light, are nocturnal, and have special ceremonies where blood is drunk. And now we can add to that, onions and garlic can be toxic to serpents because we have very thin blood that doesn't easily clot. So when we get cut, we have to be very careful. Onions and garlic thin the blood, which is great for those with other blood types other than O negative, but for O negatives, too much of this can lead to problems. And onions are especially bad for our stomachs too. Conclusion. We have covered a lot here, but of course, this is open to interpretation. Let me know what you think below. Bye for now.